your desire to go off and do something else is probably going to be pretty heavily constrained because a buyer is not going to want you to go. So just being cognizant of those sorts of things as you contemplate, how can I put my best foot forward in a potential sale process?
Having your own clarity, like where you want to go, what good looks like with running that business, and is that business making money? Is that business having the right valuation? I mean, those things are important at the end of the day.
Welcome to this special MSP M&A episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is one of the MSP channel's leading thought leaders regarding MSP mergers and acquisitions. Please welcome Christopher Vollmond-Carstens, better known as CVC, Chief M&A Officer in Ntiva Inc. Now, here's your host, the visionary founder and CEO of IT by Design and MSP Talent Authority, Mr. Sunny Kaila. Over to you, Sunny.
Hi, CVC. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining me today.
Hey, Sunny, how you doing? Good to see you. And I know we jumped right in just to call me CVC, but my full name, Christopher Vollmond-Carstens. But sometimes, just given the length of my name, it's easier just to go straight to the initials. Something I've been known for many, many years. So I know just how well you and I know each other. We just jump straight into the initials. So all good. Great to be here with you today. Excited to chat.
Yeah, that shows our relationship. And so I truly, truly appreciate your work in the channel, your impact on the channel. Because, just talking to you, so many friends have shared with me that the perspectives that they gain, the experience that you have is really amazing. You bring in a lot of, kind of different perspectives because you have worked in different industries as well. And you are the M&A expert. You are the M&A advisor to a lot of businesses. And I'm so glad that you're here to share your thinking with us. What are you seeing in the channel? So let's start there, CVC. What are you seeing? Like what the landscape looks like in the channel? What are the trends that you're seeing? What is impacting when it comes to M&A? What is that high impact?
Yeah, so I think just starting out with, I think the clear perspective on M&A activity at this point in the year, or through the first half of 24, it's busy. It is maybe not quite to the same level of frenetic activity that we saw back in 2021 or 2022, but activity is definitely up from some of the low levels that we saw in 2023. And I really think there is activity at all sizes of MSP, whether it's small little organizations looking to do acquisitions themselves, all the way up to scaled MSPs that are looking to either do add-ons or substantial strategic acquisitions, and everything in between. There's a tremendous amount of activity, and I think what's interesting too is that even in spite of the high interest rate environment that we've been in now for quite some time, and likely staying at this higher level for the foreseeable future, it hasn't put a massive damper on the activity in the market. It's still the case that if there are quality assets, quality organizations, quality companies that are coming into market, they are seeing a high level of interest and enthusiasm to come in or come from prospective buyers. And that's reflective not just of buyers, whether they're strategic or private equity, that are familiar with the MSP space, but also those that are new to the industry and wanting to get in on account of our attractive attributes that MSPs do tend to have, with diversified client base, high degree of recurring revenue, and kind of that level of certainty of a financial profile of the business and the fact that it's a bit of a counter-cyclical industry, in that whether times are up or times are down, there's still that need for an outsourced IT capability with cybersecurity offerings and related services, that it doesn't really matter what is happening in the broader macroeconomic environment. There's still a need for our services. And so I think that's driving a lot of interest and enthusiasm wanting to get into the space.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is CVC is more activities there, but quality of asset has to be there, right? What we have seen in 2021, 2022, the overall, there was a lot of activity, and there was just so much going on. And like one thing, so I was part of a peer group last week, and there was an overall discussion going on, borrowing debt is a good thing for a business or not? Should you borrow that debt and invest in an asset? And so one of the discussion point was, when you are afraid of borrowing debt and putting that into an asset, is that a good asset? Right. So it's more like, not like that strategy has to be there, or it's good to borrow and invest in good assets, but the asset quality has to be top notch, because otherwise the carry cost is high now. And if your asset is not performing well, and you may not be able to have that ROI just because of the asset performance.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think, another thing that has come out of this more expensive debt environment with higher interest rates is that the degree of due diligence that's taking place in a potential transaction is at a higher degree and much more elaborate, exhaustive, comprehensive than perhaps what you were seeing a couple of years ago. And so on account of that, sometimes we're seeing deals take a little bit longer to achieve close from when diligence first kicks off, just because the higher degree of exploration and understanding that, frankly, a higher interest rate environment is mandating. You're having to commit that much more of your dollars towards interest expense, and so you want to feel that much more confident and comfortable in the investment that you're making. And in order to get there, you're just spending more time trying to learn the ins and outs of a business that you're going after. And I think that's certainly the case among the higher quality assets that are out there. But what it's also doing is, a couple of years ago, if you are a middling quality business, you'd still be able to command a reasonably high premium for your business. And that's really tailed off in this environment. There really has been a significant flight to quality that has allowed multiples and valuations to remain relatively steady for those preeminent assets. But if anything is less than desirable, whether it's around client concentration or retention or employee churn, some attributes of the business that aren't that ideal, it's really having a stronger adverse effect on the value of those businesses. And I think the challenge too is that you've got some sellers out there that still have a viewpoint on what value for their business should be, but it's timed from back in 21 or 22, and it hasn't necessarily reset to the environment in which we're in now. And so there's spending kind of more time to be able to bridge that gap, for certain sellers to understand kind of where we're at currently in 2024.
Yeah, yeah. So what I'm hearing is, deals take a little bit longer, especially if it's a large size deal. And that's a nice segue to my next question, CVC. That one of the recent deal, I was talking to Stephen, and he was like, it took probably more than a year. And my next question is more of trends that are going to be different because of the trend that you have set in the channel. So basically, you're transforming the industry now from where it is to the next level now, where platform companies are coming together as well. So can we talk about that a little bit, like how that deal was different? Like, what's your thinking that you can share for others to learn from your experience here, and how the industry is going to change in terms of future trends when it comes to other platforms might be thinking that what Ntiva and Purple guys have done, hey, there are new possibilities. So you're kind of really transforming the industry to the next level. So talk to us about the deal, learnings, and whatever you can share, which is worth sharing with the channel. And also, where do you see things going now as a next stage M&A journey?
Yeah, so I think a couple things to hit on there, Sunny, is that first of all, we had known the Purple guys and the leadership there for several years, even before they started to contemplate a transaction. And I think that basis of familiarity, rapport, and trust sort of allowed the transaction to unfold as it did. I think it knowing that there was so much great value overlap and value similarity between our two businesses and the markets in which we went after, from a focus on the small and medium-sized businesses, that alignment and just the vision with which, our two organizations went about trying to grow our respective businesses, were very much on the same page. And so I think that helped tremendously in contemplating bringing the two businesses together. And I think the other thing that we thought about is that ordinarily, with a business of the size of the Purple Guys, the normal thought process is you have a private equity sponsor, and or after a period of time, you transact and go to the next private equity sponsor. That's the usual pathway that's taken. And we just felt that, given the great degree of alignment between our two organizations and the unique fact that we did not have any geographic overlap between our two organizations, it was purely additive. It really allowed us to think, hey, maybe it does make sense to bring these two organizations together, given the level of commonality that's there. And so far so good. As far the first couple of months, as we've been bringing these two organizations together from an integration perspective, it's been tremendously valuable and insightful to be partnering up with an organization that they themselves had done a fair number of acquisitions themselves, combining with our history and perspective and knowledge on the matter, and really being in that point of the best of both worlds coming together in order to drive towards the collective end result, or integrated state for our two organizations. So that's been really cool to be a part of and witness as the two organizations come together and just take the learnings from their past 10 acquisitions, our previous 14. This is now the combined 25th acquisition between our two organizations, all within the last 7 years. To bring that to bear. So that's been really cool to see. And then I think what could be interesting, maybe we are at the vanguard of a differentiated thinking around what scaled MSPs will be able to do when it's time for them to transact. That they don't have to go down just a singular route of moving from one sponsor to the next. So who knows? Maybe we could see somewhat larger organizations start to come together over the next couple of years. Obviously, it's not as easy to do as just a tuck-in or an add-on acquisition. There's many more components and considerations involved. So it's not as though you can just kind of fly by night the approach. It's really got to be, in order for it to go well, it really has to be built upon the foundation of a great relationship between the two organizations, commonality, rapport, trust, etc., between the two, in order to have a hope and a prayer that it will go as you intend it. But that's not to say that it isn't possible on the go forward. I think it very much could be possible, and it's kind of exciting to see that now there's a different option out there for MSPs when they seek to transact. They don't just have to go to a sponsor; they can partner up with someone that they value very highly and take it from there.
Yeah, no, that's new thinking in the channel overall, and relationship and strategic value alignment. That was the main thing that you looked at when you looked at this transaction. Now, what strategic advice would you give to MSPs looking to leverage the new trends to stay competitive and grow their business? I mean, how can they effectively plan for the future?
Yeah. Looking at it initially, if I'm a $10 million MSP and I see a $50 million plus MSP having transacted, you may think there may not be, a lot of immediate commonalities between the two. But in point of fact, I think there are actually a couple of things that are universal, regardless of the size of the transaction or size of the company. And I think first one is thinking about sort of what are your prioritized considerations to build attraction in your business. And there are a couple of things that I think about in that. It's knowing what you want as a seller. So having some semblance of a clear idea in your mind on if you're going to transact as a seller. Do you have preferences as it relates to structure, valuation expectations, what your post-deal role in the combined organization could be? And in doing so, that really helps to narrow down the scope of potential buyers out there, because there is a tremendous amount of interest out in the MSP world. But if you can hone in on those that are most aligned to your goals, ultimately you've got a better chance of success with a transaction. What relates to that is your ability to represent and discuss your company's story and your journey, to project what you have done and what you're intending to do on the go forward. Again, that's a way to build a presence as you're seeking to consider transacting. And then you start to get into some of the more tactical matters to think about, as far as just being prepared and organized, particularly on an ongoing basis. So you've got, on the monthly, you've got your financials, you've got your documents, you've got your contracts, you've got your KPIs and your metrics, all these sorts of things. You have them available at the ready, updated on a regular basis, so that, should someone come calling that seems pretty compelling and interesting, you don't have to spend a bunch of time and energy fishing around for information, because one of the particulars are with M&A and doing transactions, everything tends to be very time sensitive and of the utmost urgency. And if you can be ahead of that curve as best you can, that's going to be helpful, because at the end of the day, you are also still trying to run your business and run your business successfully while you're going through something that could be, somewhat disruptive from a diligence process and your time and attention. So if you got things in order, that's incredibly important. And I think the last thing to be thinking about is, the reasons why the MSP industry is so interesting and attractive is that there are the elements of the business that make it so compelling to a prospective buyer. And so really being able to focus in on those things that can drive positive value for your business. So not just the simple things like the highest degree of MRR, recurring revenue that you can, but also thinking about things like, your revenue growth, your strong gross margins, your client retention, your client concentration, employee retention, what's in your offering out to your clients. Do you have a generalist industry approach, or are you more industry specific? You focused in on financial services or healthcare or something along those lines. And then I think another thing that's important to be thinking about too is, if you're an owner of a business and you're looking to sell, what is the criticality of your day-to-day involvement in the business, day in and day out? Are you the primary contact for your clients? Are you the highest level of escalation in a situation? How reliant is the business on you on the day-to-day? Because your ability to step back from that day-to-day and have a strong, competent leadership team in place gives you added flexibility and more options as you contemplate a transaction or transition for your business. Because if, for example, you are keen to step back and retire or go sit on your boat after the transaction, but you are the person that all clients know, you're the person that everyone goes to when there's a tough technical issue to get to, your desire to go off and do something else is probably going to be pretty heavily constrained, because a buyer is not going to want you to go. So just being cognizant of those sorts of things as you contemplate, how can I put my best foot forward in a potential sale process, is a couple important things to be thinking about.
Yeah, that is so good. And that it is so, it resonates well with what I'm seeing in the channel, CVC. A lot of MSP entrepreneurs, they are very tightly booked, their calendars. And they think, that productivity is the key, that I am being so productive as an entrepreneur, and that's what I'm supposed to do. But if they're not running their business with intentionality in terms of, like, if I have an opportunity to exit, if I have an opportunity to kind of do something bigger, better, then, like, these are the things that I need to be aware of. I need to make sure that I'm running my business like a business, and productivity is not a measurement to measure my impact, but it's mainly, okay, here are the numbers. And do I have a team that makes it happen? Or what is my day-to-day involvement? I'm working in the business or on the business. And when you're on the business, then it's easier for you to step back, because someone else can take the strategic side and run with it, or the vision side. But if you're operationally spending a lot of time and you think that is as an entrepreneur, being productive there is your success. And I do see a lot of people they kind of overall get in trouble with that thinking because you can be productively moving towards bankruptcy. So, being aware, as you said, like what I want to do, first of all, having your own clarity, like where you want to go, where are you today, where you want to go as an entrepreneur, and then having that roadmap, which basically makes sure that you know what good looks like with running that business, and is that business making money, is that business having the right valuation, and what is the criteria to get the right valuation, what is the criteria to be best in class. I mean, those things are important at the end of the day. And one last question I have for you, CVC, is what do you see in terms of the role of offshore or global teams, you can call it? Like, what do you see with this channel evolution that's happening where MSPs are going from local to national to global? How do you see global talent playing a role in the future in the next decade or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think two points there to make. First is over the last couple of years, I've seen MSPs, regardless of size, whether the very largest or even some of the smallest, business have been able to find great talent that have been a real asset to their organization. Whether you're a $5 million MSP or a $50 million MSP, it's been an interesting trend that I've seen. Now, I'll be honest, and Ntiva may not be the greatest example to discuss on this topic, at least at this point in time, because our talent is all in the US. We have taken a slightly different approach where we have sought to build talent pools in underserved or underutilized communities within the US. And the best example for this is in the state of West Virginia. We have partnered with several technical colleges there to put in place internship programs with students, and then upon successfully completed that internship program, they become full-time technical staff at Ntiva, residing in the state of West Virginia. And we feel that is a way that we can grow talent in a cost-effective manner. And so we're perhaps a bit of a unique situation given the size of our organization relative to others who have gone offshore. And I think ultimately it just comes down to how well you're able to execute the cultivation, the growth and development of your staff, whether here in the US or abroad. And I think it's clear that there are success stories, regardless of where your staff are located. So I think that's the really cool thing that's out there. There is not one singular path that companies need to take in order to be successful, profitable, have high degrees of employee engagement, and supporting their growth and talent development over their careers at their MSP. And so I think that's the thing that's particularly cool to see. So yeah, it's a definite trend out there. Not everyone is there quite yet, but I think there are still ways that you can be successful stateside.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, every business is unique and should be unique. And, like what works for one business may not work for the other business. And also it's more of your vision, your values, your, like, what do you want to do as a business? The impact that you want to make is different thing for different people. But what I'm curious there a little bit, because, you have been buying a lot of MSPs, and this comes across a common situation when MSP don't have anything global, but they end up buying a business where they have probably some resources that were in the Philippines or India or Costa Rica or Brazil or somewhere. How do you deal with that? Like when you end up buying a business, they already have some kind of offshore resources as part of the business that you're buying.
Yeah, so up to date, we haven't actually acquired any companies that have had an existing offshore staff or offshore presence. Now, whether that's intentional or somewhat self-selected, but I think ultimately, whether you're a company that could be acquiring a business that does have an offshore presence, I think ultimately the determination you need to be thinking about is how does the addition of that group of staff offshore, how does that fit into your organization? And does it fit into your organization? Is it consistent with the vision of your business, the way in which you seek to develop your talent, the way in which you seek to serve your clients, does that all fit with your go forward intentionality for the business, or is it simply just a financial construct that you're seeking to take advantage of? I think ultimately the businesses that I've seen being successful with staff offshore is that it really is a natural fit to their existing organization. They're plugged in to the community of staff domestically. They're plugged in with the client base and who they're serving. They're really a natural cog or extension of the organization that just happens to be in a different time zone than where the legacy business was located. So I think if you come at it with that angle, I think that's ultimately where you can be successful. And there've certainly been locations internationally that have seemed to lend quite well to this sort of dynamic, whether it's the Philippines or closer to shore in Mexico or Central America, or even utilization of staff over in the UK. I've seen businesses be successful in that regard. So I think ultimately, yeah, it just comes down to how does it fit in your organization, and if it does, and you're committed to that, then I think you've got a much higher degree of success to come out of it. Okay.
Thank you so much for coming to my show today. It's always a lot of learning when I talk to you. You are someone who is out there every day talking to so many different entrepreneurs and looking at the channel with a very different perspective. And I truly appreciate you coming and sharing your thinking, your experience with the rest of the our MSP peers. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Sunny. Happy to do it.
Thank you for watching Sunny's Silver Linings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.